On September 20th, 1977, Arthur Fonzie, strapped on water skis, flew over a penned-up shark on national television and accidentally handed the English language a brand new phrase. Every beloved sitcom carries an expiration date, and when that date arrives, things turn strange. From lottery wins and cloning machines to kidnapping two-parters and entire casts vanishing without a word. We're counting down 10 beloved sitcoms from the 70s through the 2000s that completely lost the plot in their final seasons. And we've got the ratings collapses and behind-the-scenes chaos to back it all up. If you love this kind of deep dive into the shows you grew up watching, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss one of these. Let's get to the countdown. Number 10. Will and Grace. For 8 seasons on NBC from 1998 to 2006, Will and Grace stood as one of the sharpest comedies on television. And that's what made the two-part finale so jarring, because it aired on May 18, 2006, pulled 18.43 million viewers, which was the biggest audience the show had attracted in 2 seasons, and almost nobody liked what they watched. A dizzying series of time jumps crammed the episode. 2 years into the future, Will and Grace had stopped speaking entirely after Grace moved to Rome with Leo to raise her daughter, and then it jumped another 20 years to show their kids meeting in a college dorm and presumably falling in love. Entertainment Weekly's Jennifer Armstrong captured the frustration when she wrote that by the end, instead of feeling sad to say goodbye, viewers were just relieved that yet another flash forward wasn't being thrown at them. When the NBC revival launched in 2017, the very first episode wiped all of it away, retconning the entire flash-forward sequence as a drunken daydream of Karen's. Co-creator Max Muchnick admitted the original finale caused them enormous grief, because you write a finale assuming the show is over and you never imagine it coming back. Number 9. Diff'rent Strokes. Diff'rent Strokes premiered on NBC in 1978 and became famous or infamous for its very special episodes. What drove the weirdness of its final season, though, was a network jump. NBC canceled the show after Season 7 in the spring of 1985, and Embassy Television sold it to ABC, which aired one last 19-episode season starting September 27th of that year. ABC did not ease into things. A 1-hour two-parter called Sam's Missing opened the season, and in it, 7-year-old Sam McKinney gets kidnapped from a grocery store by a grieving father trying to replace his dead son, which is a wild way to welcome audiences to a new network. On top of that, ABC forced a re-recording of the theme song because NBC owned the original version. Between Seasons 7 and 8, Dixie Carter had already been replaced by Marianne Mobley. 69th out of 106 shows with an 11.5 household rating is where the final season finished, and ABC pulled the plug in March 1986, with the last episode airing March 7th of that year. Number 8. Growing Pains. Growing Pains defined wholesome 80s family television when it debuted on ABC in 1985, climbing to a top 10 hit by its second season while following the Seaver family through the usual sitcom ups and downs. And then Season 7 arrived and changed everything. Producers scrambled to stop a ratings nosedive by casting 16-year-old Leonardo DiCaprio as Luke Brower, a homeless teenager who moved in with the Seavers, and DiCaprio appeared in 23 of the season's 24 episodes, earning a Young Artist Award nomination in the process. Co-star Joanna Kearns remembered him being especially intelligent and disarming for his age, which meant the kid clearly had a future. What he didn't have was the power to save the show. 75th the ratings is where Growing Pains landed by the end of that season, and ABC canceled it. DiCaprio actually got written out near the end so he could go film What's Eating Gilbert Grape, which earned him his first Oscar nomination. So the show's cancellation turned into cinema's gain. Kirk Cameron compounded the discomfort behind the scenes. By that point, he'd become a born-again Christian and was reportedly pressing script demands that aligned with his religious views, which alienated some of his co-stars. Reconciliation among the cast didn't come until the 2000 reunion movie. Number 7. Laverne and Shirley. 30 million viewers a week tuned in during the 1977 through 78 season, placing Laverne and Shirley at number 1 in America after it launched on ABC in 1976 as a Happy Days spinoff set in 1950s Milwaukee at the Schatz Brewery. Season 6 is when producers uprooted the entire show and relocated the characters to Burbank, California, and Lenny and Squiggy followed them west, but the blue-collar Milwaukee charm that defined the show did not survive the move. Season 8 brought the real catastrophe. Cindy Williams became pregnant in early 1982 and expected to keep working through it, but contract negotiations revealed the production had her scheduled to work on her actual due date, and Paramount refused to budge. A $20 million lawsuit followed, eventually settled out of court, and Williams walked away after just 2 episodes of the final season. Her last scenes featured Shirley hypnotized to think she was a chicken whenever she heard a bell, and in the very next episode, Shirley left town through a note explaining she'd married an Army medic named Walter Meany, making her Shirley Feeney Meany. Penny Marshall finished the season performing alone, and the show was canceled in May 1983. Going from number 1 in America to a solo act in 7 seasons stands as one of the steepest falls on this entire list. Number 6. The Cosby Show, 201 episodes, over 8 seasons on NBC. From 1984 to 1992, and for 5 consecutive years, The Cosby Show held the number 1 spot in America, tying with Roseanne at a 23.1 household rating in 1989 through 90. By the final season in 91 through 92, that ranking had slipped to number 18, which still sounds respectable until you remember what it felt like to own the top of television for half a decade. New characters kept cycling in as original cast dynamics shifted. Lisa Bonet came and went. Keshia Knight Pulliam's Rudy aged out of being the adorable youngest kid, and producers brought in Raven Simone as step-granddaughter Olivia in Season 6 and Erica Alexander as Cousin Pam in Season 7. None of that is what turned the show strange, though, because that distinction belongs to the episodes themselves. The Day the Spores Landed aired November 9, 1989 in Season 6, a dream episode where spores from a Peruvian volcano had somehow impregnated 11 million men, including Cliff, Theo, Elvin, and Martin. Washington Post critic Tom Shales called it a boisterous departure from the norm, but conceded that episodes staying within the show's format were more satisfying. January 1990 brought Cliff's Nightmare, a crossover with the Jim Henson Hour, where actual Muppets, Gonzo, Statler, Sweetums, and others performed surgery on Cliff after he ate a bad sausage hoagie. Entertainment Weekly's Lisa Schwartzbaum observed by 1992 that the show, which forever changed how black families were portrayed on television, was getting outshined by The Simpsons. April 30th, 1992 is when the two-part finale aired, and that date happened to fall on the second night of the Los Angeles riots, with Bill Cosby appearing on KMBC before the broadcast to plead for calm. Number 5. Scrubs. Scrubs already had its ending, and that's what makes this one sting. Bill Lawrence created the show for NBC in 2001, moved it to ABC for Season 8 in January 2009, and filmed the episode My Finale as a genuine series ender that fans loved. And then ABC ordered 13 more episodes. Lawrence pitched calling the new batch Scrubs Med and treating it as a spin-off set at a medical school called Winston University, but ABC rejected the name change. Lawrence later explained that he'd wanted a clean break, but the network panicked at the last minute and threw a lot of money at Zach Braff to appear in some episodes, which blurred every line between spin-off and continuation. Only 3 of the original 7 main cast members returned as regulars: John C. McGinley, Donald Faison, and Braff for just 6 episodes. Sarah Chalk guest starred in 4 episodes while Judy Reyes declined to return because she would only come back as a regular. Filming moved locations, the camera switched from Super 16 film to digital video, giving it a noticeably different look, and Carrie Bichet took over narration duties as the new lead, Lucy Bennett. 3.83 million viewers per episode is what Season 9 averaged, the lowest of any season in the show's history, and ABC officially canceled it on May 14, 2010. Donald Faison later described Season 9 as feeling like a multiverse story, like an entirely different universe. The upcoming 2026 revival picks up after Season 8, treating Season 9 as non-canon because even the people who made it know it doesn't count. Number 4. Married with Children. 259 episodes across 11 seasons on Fox from 1987 to 1997, and for a show built on dysfunction and anti-humor, the late seasons somehow managed to turn even weirder than the premise. Season 7 dropped a character named Seven, played by Shane Sweet, into the Bundy household as Peg's cousin's abandoned son, and audiences rejected him almost immediately. What the writers did next might be the most savage meta-joke in sitcom history, because Seven simply vanished from the show, and the only acknowledgement of his existence in Season 8 was a cutaway showing his face on a milk carton labeled missing, while the Bundys glanced at it without a word. Bud developed an alter ego called Grandmaster B during the late seasons. Buck the dog died and came back reincarnated as a new dog named Lucky, and a niece named Amber appeared for 4 episodes before being dropped entirely. Absurdity and fumes carried the show in equal measure. April 1997 brought a cancellation from Fox with zero warning, and the cast found out through the press. Christina Applegate described learning the news through a chain of secondhand sources, someone who knew someone who worked for her assistant, because nobody from the network bothered to call. Ed O'Neill heard from a couple who had just gotten married. Chicago Shoe Exchange, the episode that aired on June 9, 1997, was a standard installment never intended as a finale. And O'Neill actually pitched a proper ending where the Bundys would win the lottery only for a tornado to destroy their house. Fox passed on that too. 11 seasons, and Al Bundy never got a goodbye. Number 3. That 70s Show. That 70s Show ran on Fox from 1998 to 2006, and its final season became the textbook example of what happens when your leads walk out the door and the writers try to keep the party going anyway. Topher Grace departed after season 7 to pursue film, with his character Eric Foreman written off as having moved to Africa to teach. And Ashton Kutcher also wanted out, appearing in only 5 of season 8's episodes, 4 to give Kelso a send-off to Chicago and 1 brief appearance in the finale. Replacing Grace took 2 attempts. Brett Harrison's arrived first as Charlie, introduced near the end of season 7, but when Harrison landed the lead in another Fox show called The Loop, producers killed Charlie off-screen by having him fall from the Point Place water tower, which was the same water tower the original gang had famously tumbled from back in season 1. Josh Myers stepped in next as Randy Pearson, slotting into Eric's spot in the friend group and even dating Donna. Myers handled the fan backlash with perspective. He acknowledged in a later interview that a lot of people resented him because they felt he'd stolen Eric's girlfriend, and his response boiled down to the fact that Topher Grace left to appear in Spider-Man 3 while he just took a job, and Donna isn't a real person. Fair point. One small but telling detail about Season 8 is that every single episode except the finale was named after a Queen song. Grace returned uncredited for a brief reunion with Donna in the May 18, 2006 finale, and when Netflix launched the spin-off That 90s Show in 2023, both Charlie and Randy were completely ignored, treated as though they'd never existed. Number 2. Family Matters. Family Matters started as a spin-off of Perfect Strangers and premiered on ABC on September 22, 1989. Designed as a show about the Winslows, a working-class black family in Chicago. And then Steve Urkel walked through the door in a season 1 episode called Laura's First Date, introduced as a one-time character who became the biggest breakout in sitcom history and slowly transformed the show into something resembling a low-budget science fiction series. The slide happened gradually and then accelerated all at once. By the mid-seasons, Urkel had invented a cool juice series that turned him into his suave alter ego Stefan Urquell, and then came the Urkel Transformation Chamber, followed by a cloning machine in the season 7 finale, Send in the Clone, airing May 17, 1996, where Steve literally cloned himself and turned the clone into a permanent Stefan. After that came a shrink ray, a time machine, and an Urkelbot. Season 7 also featured Urkel crashing a car under the Winslows' living room. Real people paid a price for all of this. Jamie Foxworth, who played the Winslows' youngest daughter Judy, disappeared from the show in season 4 with zero on-screen explanation. Co-creator William Bickley later acknowledged that as plots shifted to center on the older teens and Urkel, there simply wasn't room for Judy's character to grow. Foxworth told The Root that the producers figured they could drop her and nobody would notice, that they'd gotten away with it on previous shows, but her fans absolutely noticed. By season 9, the show had moved from ABC to CBS, and the on-set tension boiled over when Jo Marie Payton, who played the family's matriarch Harriet Winslow, walked off mid-season and was replaced by Judianne Elder for the remaining episodes. CBS canceled the show after that single season, killing any plans for a 10th year. 215 episodes over 9 seasons, and by the end, the family and Family Matters had been reduced to supporting characters in a mad scientist's laboratory. Number 1. Roseanne. No show on this list crashed harder, weirder, or more spectacularly. Roseanne premiered on ABC on October 18, 1988, spent its first 6 seasons in the top 5, and tied for number 1 with The Cosby Show at a 23.1 household rating in 1989 through 90. Raw, funny, and unflinching, it stood as the most honest depiction of working-class American life on network television. Season 9 obliterated all of that. Millions from Heaven premiered on September 17, 1996, and in it, the Connors won the Illinois State Lottery for $108 million, which is the moment the show abandoned any connection to reality. Suddenly, the Connors were flying on private jets, spending time with a wealthy prince played by Jim Varney, foiling terrorists on a train carrying the First Lady, jet-setting to New York and Cape Cod, and hosting Jennifer Saunders and Joanna Lumley of Absolutely Fabulous as guest stars. That last detail traces back to a rejected pitch, because Roseanne Barr had tried to sell an American Absolutely Fabulous remake starring Carrie Fisher and Barbara Carrera, and when networks turned it down, she folded elements of that show into her own. Number 35 is where a show that once sat at number 1 landed by Season 9, with half the audience from Season 6 gone entirely. And then the finale revealed the trick. Into That Good Night, the two-part Closer airing May 20th, 1997, pulled back the curtain and showed that the entire season, along with chunks of earlier storylines, had been a novel that Roseanne the character wrote to cope with Dan's death from his Season 8 heart attack. Within the fiction, she'd swapped which daughter married which boyfriend, and she revealed that Jackie was actually a lesbian. Time magazine later placed it on a list of the 10 most controversial series finales. When ABC revived the show in 2018, the very first episode reconned virtually everything from Season 9 out of existence, including Dan's death. Even the network that aired it wanted to pretend it never happened. Honorable mention. Before wrapping up, we need to acknowledge the show that went weird and somehow stuck the landing. MASH ran on CBS from 1972 to 1983, producing 256 episodes plus its legendary finale, and it started as a broad, irreverent anti-war comedy that gradually shifted into something far more dramatic as Alan Alda took on greater creative control and directed more than 30 episodes himself. Critics labeled the later seasons as preachy, and cast turnover was relentless, with McLean Stevenson, Wayne Rogers, Larry Linville, and Gary Berghoff all departing across the show's run. What separates MASH from everything else on this list is the payoff. Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen aired on February 28, 1983, and it remains the most-watched scripted television episode in American history with a 60.2 rating and a 77 share, drawing approximately 105.97 million average viewers. $450,000 per 30-second spot is what CBS charged advertisers, which ran higher than the going rate for that year's Super Bowl. Getting weird doesn't always mean getting bad, and MASH is the only show here where the transformation may have made the ending stronger. Conclusion. Look at this list long enough and the same story emerges over and over. A lead departs for movies, whether it's Topher Grace, Ron Howard, or Ashton Kutcher. A pregnancy ignites a contract war, as it did with Cindy Williams. A network meddles with something that was already working, like ABC ordering Scrubs Season 9, Fox canceling Married with Children without a goodbye, or CBS poaching shows that weren't built for a new home. Or a creator's ego outgrows the premise, and you end up with a $108 million lottery and an absolutely fabulous crossover nobody asked for. Roseanne dropped from number 1 to number 35. The Cosby Show fell from number 1 to number 18. Growing Pains cratered to 75th. Scrubs Season 9 averaged just 3.83 million viewers per episode. Every one of these shows was beloved, and every one of them reached a moment where the people in charge decided something drastic needed to happen to keep the lights on, and that decision is what fans remember most. None of the weirdness erases what came before, and that's why we keep talking about these shows decades later. Roseanne's first 8 seasons remain some of the best comedy ever written. Happy Days still defined an era, and Family Matters kept a generation of kids laughing every Friday night. Caring about these shows enough to feel frustrated by their decline is proof they mattered in the first place. Thanks for watching. If you stuck around this long, you're our kind of people. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us which show on this list hurt the most to watch decline. We'll see you in the next one.